So hi everybody and welcome to the first in our series of Avid Frame the Future virtual events. Thanks a lot for taking the time to join us today. And what we're going to talk about today really is about the use of AI and talk about what we class as fostering creativity through the power of AI. Let's take a quick look at the agenda for today. So my name is Craig Wilson. I'm the product evangelist for video and media at Avid. And I'm delighted to say that today I've got a great guest. He's Shailendra Mathur, who's our VP of Architecture and Technology. So we'll obviously do a little bit of introduction. Then we're going to hand across to Shailendra, who's going to take us through a presentation, which will cover things such as our philosophies behind the work we're doing around AI, our view towards what's called responsible AI. We'll also then introduce what's called Avid Ada. If you haven't heard of Avid Ada, lots of really interesting stuff that we're doing around there. And then Shailendra and I will do a quick Q&A session, and then we'll finish off with a summary. So obviously, if you're watching this via Zoom, I'm sure you're all fairly familiar with this. Please feel free to submit your questions using the Q&A function. We'll look to respond to your questions directly there. If you are watching this on any of the Avid social channels, then we'll have people monitoring those channels, and so we'll try and respond directly there as well. So please feel free to submit your questions, and we will answer them within the Q&A or on the social channels directly. But that's enough for me for just now. What I'll do at the moment is I'll hand across to Shailendra for the presentation. We'll see you in a little bit.
All right, I'm Shailendra Mathur. I'm the Vice President of Architecture and Technology at Avid. I'm going to be talking to you about some of the philosophies and the technologies around the AI technologies that we're introducing, the features that we've been demonstrating at IBC and going beyond. So let me just jump straight to what does AI mean to content creators. If you look at the world where mundane tasks that often bog us down are taken care of, just imagine that. It'll leave us more time for creativity and storytelling. Imagine that you can actually do this while being cost-effective and more efficient. Imagine that your content can now be targeted to a much more diverse audience, especially geodiverse audience. That means you can monetize your content a lot better, in a lot more geographies, but also outlets. And imagine you not just appealing to diverse populations, but actually unique segments of the market, or perhaps even personalized to a single person's taste. This is all about monetization of the content. It's about saving time and making you more creative. These are just some of the advantages of what AI is bringing to content creators. But as we get excited about the possibilities of AI, we have to be very cognizant about some of the downfalls, some of the pitfalls that we see right now around AI usage as well. This is important because as we develop further, what some of the features and capabilities that we bring out, we have to take both the opportunities and the threats into account. So what are some of the threats? Remember I said that, hey, how about we can automate the mundane? Well, we do have a shortage of qualified people coming into our industry. What do we typically hand to them when they are actually joining our industry? It is some of the mundane tasks so that they can become familiar and grow into the editing or mixing or any of the asset management fields that we have. So what would happen to them? Well, even when we say that you can do something more cost effectively, more efficiently, can that increase the pressure on you to do more with less? It could. Is there a risk that maybe the creative spark that comes from the human touch gets reduced? Could it be just cookie cutter content that's coming out? It could, but you'll see some answers to all of this. And then we are also very cognizant of the fact that there are attribution issues and plagiarism issues. Will that affect some of the livelihood of some of the creative individuals? So I don't want to paint a scary picture. The point is the whole idea here is that you take the threats into account as well as you're developing out. But this also leads me into a position that at Avid that we've taken, which is of responsible AI. It's not just Avid, it's actually the whole industry that's moving towards it. There are EU regulations coming out. There are even the US government. Those regulations are not meant to constrain what folks do, but it is actually we agree with a lot of the philosophies. It's not onerous, it's about risk-based approach. So there's it is necessary to have some type of regulation and some level of control, I'll say, over what AI is doing, whether it's regulation or the other way we're thinking of it, which is keep the human in the loop. This is a philosophy you'll see us guiding through the development here, and the features that you'll see AI be the of the plane, fly. The co-pilot, you're flying the plane. Let it make the decisions, give recommendations, and you accept them. This is the way, if even when we have a choice of developing something that's completely automated, we're not taking it because we want to make sure that the human, the creative is in the loop. There are other aspects of responsible AI that are coming into with that we're factoring into our development. You'll see some of those come out as we talk about the individual features. So at Avid, how did we actually come up with some of the AI strategies? This is not just about describing development process. It's important to see this here because it sets the tone for what you'll be seeing later on, because you'll see some things that are actually shipping. They have been productized. You'll see something that we'll call prototype or tech preview. Then you'll see something which say, hey, this is still in research. We're not, I'll just be covering a bit of the research that we're doing, but just know that there are outlets for each one of them. The research work we actually publish as part of conferences. We're going around talking about it because AI technology is changing. It's changing very fast. Uh, just to keep experimenting ourselves and not reveal to others what we're doing, and collaborating with them is not something that's sustainable. We have to get feedback and also collaborate with university researchers. We have contractors coming in a fail fast, succeed fast manner. That's really important. These are not 2-year projects, and these are not science projects. These are applied research projects of where does AI work for us. So that's what comes out as feasibility and research. But then what you'll see, what you saw at IBC and what you see as demonstrations are a lot of prototyping and tech previews so that we can start getting feedback. And when we believe it's something will work, we just want to get that feedback from our customers with a broad base of customers. And even when we productize, you'll see a couple of features that we've productized that we're calling public previews. We're basically still saying, look, okay, it's all GA, but can you give us feedback on that? So now let's jump into which areas have we been dealing with. So a lot of what we develop as part of the AI technology is aligned with some of the BU strategies, audio and video BU, but you'll see creation, so just increasing creativity in our creative tools, collaboration as a theme, asset management, content management as a theme coming out, and also automation that includes deployment and other operational areas. These are some of the focus areas for AI. When I talk about productization, the tough part there is actually applying the hardening. The hardening includes security. It includes performance. But we're also taking an open platform approach. You'll see examples where we've just announced things like the Panel SDK, where we ourselves are using it. Pro Tools as a scripting SDK, we ourselves are using that. So AI has to work with APIs. You cannot have a decision taken by AI without a way of applying it through an API. So that's part of the strategy that you'll see that it's aligned with the BU innovation strategy. How do we bring it all together? all philosophies and these technologies, I'd like to introduce to Avid Ada. What is Avid Ada? Avid Ada is a brand that basically tells the user that it's an AI-based assistive technology. That assistive technology will be supporting you, the creator, to reach the next level of creativity and efficiency. But the technologist in me, what does that mean? For me, it's basically, it's the set of tools, set of technologies that we share with all of our products and some of the philosophies. Now, let's just see it in action rather than just describe it. Let's see it in action. Throughout the whole the presentation, what you'll see are a few philosophies and a technology concept. So I mentioned the term co-pilot before. You'll see in the next few slides how some of the examples of how we're bringing out Ada to be a creative assistant. So when we are thinking of Ada, there are different forms it will take, but they'll all be of this creative assistant type. Next thing, the question is asked often, hey, what's generative AI and how are you using it? We'll see some of the examples and also mention what generative AI can do, but which ones are we doing right now? Which ones are we using and why? Lastly, there's this whole area of knowledge management. That's the term I use. Knowledge management is actually an established principle. But what I'm basically stating is that asset management is going to move to what we call knowledge management, where search changes to discovery and recommendations, where metadata becomes much, much more richer. You'll see some examples of that. So let's just jump into the first topic, which is the co-pilot concept. As we'd mentioned, co-pilot is places the AI alongside you. How can it help you as an assistant? Basically, story writing. You'll see examples of that. Recommending content as you're writing stories or editing. Auto completion is actually a form of Copilot, and in Sibelius, our audio product for notes and basically notation software, we can actually assist the user in proposing new notes and chords based on the harmony analysis that we're doing. You'll see it assisting in terms of help troubleshooting, but including in context. And my favorite is this API code generation. Well, I'll come back to that. But we talked about providing help troubleshooting. That's the most obvious way Avid Ada will help. So this is an example of us exposing as a preview a chatbot. So Avid Ada is also referred to as the chatbot that we've created. The chatbot today, the first place we've exposed is on our own user guide. This is, on our website. The website already has some way of conversing with it. We use technologies like Drift and a few others, where you can have conversations with what we've been exposing. We've had a chatbot, but then it returns search results. But now, as we're entering a new generation where, as I'd mentioned, search is changing, not just for asset management, but even in the way, even today when you work with Google, you type in and you're getting results back in your natural language. This is exactly what's happening. You're conversing with Avid Ada in your natural language. It's not just in English, but in any other language. And rather than just giving you search results of, oh, go look at this document here or that document there, it's actually putting together the information it's collecting from multiple documents, as well as some of the training that it's been provided by OpenAI, in this case, through the Azure OpenAI, and giving results back on general information as well. On a website, when you put that there, of course, it can stitch together information across multiple workflows, including things like how do I buy, how do I upgrade, so other operational items, and as well as how do I, how much does it cost, that type of stuff. That's where that's appropriate, but it's also appropriate to have it within our applications. So you will see Avid Ada being demonstrated in Media Central, Cloud UX, in Media Composer, Pro Tools, as windows. What does that give you? It contextualizes the information even more. So even within Media Central, when I'm asking, hey, how do I do, it's a case of a rundown, how do I create a rundown? If I say that, how do I ingest? It'll know that I'm asking about Media Central versus, say, ingesting in Media Composer or in Pro Tools. So that's where the contextualizing comes in. You'll see a lot more uses of that when we go forward. I'd actually mentioned that one of the assistive methods was API code generation. A final user usually never sees APIs, don't want to deal with APIs. They're not coders. That's not their job. But we found a really neat way of bringing it all together into something that helps our API story, but exposing it to the users. One of the ways that we're using Avid Ada, and in this case, it's a Pro Tools screen that I'm showing. Sorry, it's going by very fast, but why just ask Avid Ada for help on how do I say create a session? Why not ask it to create the session itself? So in one case, if you just ask it, it'll tell you, well, here, press this UI button, go here, put this setting in. But if you can just describe what you need, it'll actually execute that in the application, we're actually using the code generation capabilities of Avid Ada to scan our API documentation. With the API's documentation, it can actually figure out, construct together code that we can then execute based on the conversation, based on the functions that you're describing it. It can piece that together. This is really cool. And of course, you are in control of what's being executed. It's not automatically executing every single thing. You're in control of what's being executed. So this is a very innovative way that we've exposed Avid Ada, and you'll see another example of that going forward. So one of the things, again, as I mentioned, we're asked, how are you using generative AI? Now I'm going to step back a bit and explain generative AI, because there's a lot of confusion in the field around what defines generative AI. I've often heard people referencing or talking about generative AI when they just mean AI. So just remember, you have artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence can be accomplished in many, many ways. It can be, it's an old field. It can be rules-based. Anything that's automatic and has some decision making built in, that's artificial intelligence. That can, even some of the automation engines that we have based on rules can be called AI, where the human is not directly controlling every single thing, but some decisions are being taken by AI. Then there's ML, which is machine learning, where it's learned patterns about for execution and can execute that. Generative AI is a very specific type of ML, where you're actually it's using very particular type of models and I'll just put it very, very simply. If it's generating stuff, that's generative AI. So what stuff can it generate? If you see it generating scripts, storyboards, music, notation, video, speech, that means it's using generative AI. And how does it generate? It basically takes up input and that input can be just text, it can be audio, video, but then it's producing a new content based on a pattern that it sees in the input content. So how are we using generative AI within Avid? There are multiple areas. I show music, video, all of these are possibilities. But as we were experimenting with it, as we were doing our RAD lab projects, the research and advanced development lab projects with it, one of the things that we realized very quickly that speech to text generative AI was probably the most important one for us. So It's not that we're ignoring audio generation, video generation, and other areas. It's just that we focus on speech to text to make that a success first because of the number of functions and functionality that comes out of it. So one of the first things that we exposed in Media Composer here that's actually shipping is what we call phrase find AI and script sync AI. These used to use metadata, like for example, phrase find AI. The finding and searching was based on metadata, but then on phonemes as well. The phoneme-based search were based on language models. They were AI models, not machine learning based, but AI models where you could actually install individual language packs. Now, there's no longer a need for individual language packs. There's a single model that's doing speech to text versus phoneme detection. And that speech to text that can convert into multiple languages. You can even have mixed languages. And the speech to text information, as I mentioned, it can be applied in so many different ways. So synchronizing scripts, which is something we were doing before, but now based on AI, the speech to text technology is one function, search was another function. But then when we showed this to users as part of our private previews and the proof of concepts, the first thing that a lot of the users said is that, hang on, you're generating speech to text and you're just using it for yourselves. You know that we actually send out our content, our audio for transcription purposes. It takes a lot of time, weeks, and then when it comes back, we just kind of distribute the transcript to multiple departments because that is gold for us. So can you why just use it for yourself? Can you just expose that to us, the speech to text? Sure enough, so that's what we did. What you'll see as a preview at IBC and beyond is basically we have an option to export transcript, and here we pick the subcap export, but you see what's coming out is a plain TXT file. When we asked folks, it's like, hey, which UI would you want it? They said, no, keep it simple, stupid. Just put it out as a text file so we can use it in multiple forms. Of course, to make it usable, we added a couple of things like time code association is in there. So every single transcript part is associated with that. There's a speaker ID. So we can't exactly tell what the who the speaker is, but we can say it's speaker ID 1 or 2, and you can of course go and quickly copy and replace. So these are some of the other value adds that came out from speech to text. But now let me show you if you combine the whole co-pilot chatbot concept, the speech to text concept, combine in the power of Azure's OpenAI APIs, and also the panel SDK and the code generation part that I talked about, it just becomes an explosive value. We enter this area of what I call conversational editing. This has been driving us for quite a long time, this conversational editing aspect. So what is that conversational editing doing? Here, what the product designer was doing, sorry, it's going by quickly, but he basically asked Avid Ada to generate a speech to text for one particular piece of content. And it was a bit of a long content, but then what he asked was, hey, find me the funny moments in there. No, hang on, what do you mean Avid Ada finding funny moments? Well, till now, you would, of course, as an editor, sit there watching the whole thing or listening to the whole thing to figure out what the funny moments are. Here, what's happening is we're feeding the speech-to-text content to the OpenAI system, and which is the Azure-based OpenAI system, and there it's actually, because it can judge funny. Now, what's funny to AI may not be funny to you, but it is definitely a leg up. And like as we said, it's not replacing what you think is funny. And we said, will it lose the human touch? No, the human is in the loop. It's suggesting to you, how about these clips? You can pick it, choose it. You can put in more queries, but it's a method where it's actually shortening your time of finding content. And if you would want to go ahead and just review the whole thing yourself and find the funny content, that's up to you too. But it actually ended up finding a few good funny content in there, and especially if you're doing things like trailers and just want to find a few, want to set the mood of the edit. Once it found it, our product designer basically said, well, okay, now can you generate a subclip from it in this bin? And that's what it's populating the bin on the left hand side. And then finally said, hey, can you just auto sequence all the subclips into an edit? And that's exactly what's happening here as well. So this is what we're calling conversational editing, when you're actually conversing with the application. Here you might be typing, but you can actually, in fact, you can try it out with our system. You can actually do speech to text typing, as you know, even on a desktop, mobile, any of these places you can do that. So it is literally typed or conversed, basically way of interacting with the application. It doesn't mean that you're going to give up your keyboards for certain actions when you're editing JKL and or your controllers when you're actually working with audio. But it is for certain use cases, this is really, really fast. Other use cases, you use your own application skills to drive the application. All right, let's jump into the area of knowledge management. What is knowledge management? It's basically taking what we did with metadata search into a brand new area where it's not just information about that you're searching. It's not just a syntax that you're searching. It's not just search for content, but you now work with knowledge. Knowledge can be in the basically it's about finding correlation, as it says, contextual relationships between data, discovering that so that you can inquire it in new ways, you can query it new ways. It's not just search, as I'd mentioned. There are two separate technologies: semantic embeddings and knowledge graphs. We're investing in both. What you'll see as a proof of concepts and previews coming out right now are around semantic technologies. Knowledge graphs are an area of research. Remember, I said we are doing research and publishing those. You will see there are papers already published earlier, and at the SMPTE summit coming up, we have one paper on knowledge graphs in particular, what it does, and this is also supported by EBU, SMPTE, and the Movie Labs efforts. They are headed in this direction as well. So semantic embeddings are an ML-based methods where it's contextually mapping, whether it's text, audio, video, any piece of content, giving it a number, and if it's all the meaning inside of the content, if you give it a label, if it's clustered together, that means you can start finding matches between things. The knowledge graph concept is taking metadata to a next level because it's linking metadata. It's linking content silos, whether it's PAM, MAM, or graphics within our department, within our product group, or even larger enterprises, the mastering department to the wardrobe department, to the editorial, to the sound mixing. Rather than holding information in the silos, it bubbles it up and connects it together. So that's the area of knowledge management. All right, that was enough geek talk. Let's jump into exactly how are we exposing things. Metadata still has a big value, right? You can log metadata. We have multiple methods of logging metadata in Media Composer, Media Central, Pro Tools, and displaying it and searching. But what if you don't have metadata? Well, we've already had a feature shipping in Media Central Asset Management that shows off how we can add metadata later on using cognitive AI cognitive functions, whether it's using faces, expression detection. This is not information you would have logged, but it's detecting it based on the video analysis in this particular case. Speech to text was audio analysis. This is video analysis that's happening. So this has been a shipping product already. But as we now go into the area of semantic technologies, things change. So search, where you had to type in exact metadata fields, syntactically correct information to search against, is now changing into contextual discovery. It's surging contextual discovery and recommendations coming up. So in this case, you can see that a story is being typed on top. Sorry, the other UI coming up, but Claudia Roth is the presenter of Media Central Moments. Well, let me just take like a Biden example. Biden speaking about inflation. As they're typing the story, what's happening is that you have A-roll recommendations where literally it'll match where Biden is talking about inflation. And that's the A-roll that's going to come out. That information is not pre-populated. It's not metadata. It's not even cognitively discovered and put back as metadata that you can peruse. It's actually matching that using the semantic embeddings that I showed you before, where it knows that, hey, Biden is here, inflation is being talked about, and it associates the video with the text. Both of them have the same embeddings saying Biden and inflation. So that's why in that embedding space, it says, aha, this part of these are all the content types that has this contextually matches what you're asking for in natural language. Now imagine going to the next level. The next level is the B-roll. Because the B-roll, what would you do typically? You'd be hunting for, hey, maybe it's something people shopping in a shopping center, maybe it's a bank. All of those, you'd be searching for that and then bringing that into your edits. But now what's happening is we're taking variations of the natural language and searching, or basically in that embedding space, matching to those variations, and out comes B-rolls. In the Biden case, it would have actually produced clips that are related to, but not exactly matching what you were asking for. So you'll see that even in this, Claudia Roth is presenting Media Central Moments. There are other clips where presenters are coming in, where you're in a studio environment. Basically, these can be all B-roll content as well. Now, we were having so much fun with AI. Some of our product managers, product designers, engineers started really putting things together. You saw an example in Media Composer where conversational editing came around. Here, we had folks like Regis kind of propose that, hey, why don't we just take the same speech to text, but stitch it into a much more usable, rather than individual technologies and features, let's show a very usable feature set here. So apart from the A roll, B roll, selecting some of the clips, you can then convert that into, you can ask Avid Ada to convert it into speech to, the speech to text. The same thing you saw working in Media Composer. And in fact, as I said, Avid Ada is a collection of technologies that we're using across. That's exactly what's happening here. It's the same piece of technology that's moving across Media Central as well as Media Composer. Same thing will go into Pro Tools. But using the speech to text engine, the way our product manager used it there was basically say, summarize the content. So imagine you have like a 2-hour clip and somebody asks you, what's in this clip? Well, you'd be sitting there listening and watching the whole thing to understand what's in there. But now you can take the full audio, convert it into a summary, a very short summary of the speech to text, and quickly look at what content you need. Once that content is found, then you can actually say, okay, transcribe everything, select certain segments from there. But in this particular case, it's been transcribed, and it can go, and then basically there are multiple languages that are becoming available there to just take the transcription and translate it into Japanese or any other languages. So quite a few numbers, and the team's also done the work to put these as production markers as well. So it shows up in your timeline to the speech to text. So you can see that even though, the individual feature, I start with like technology and how it's coming together in products, you can see them as individual features, but our product teams and we're all having so much fun just stitching it all together in all of these into usable workflows. So we're having fun here within the product and the architecture, the office of the CTO. We hope you go out and have fun as well with all of these technologies. And as I'd mentioned, we are open in what we're doing. First of all, it's not just the magazine articles, the interviews that are coming out, but a lot of our research is being really appreciated and being published. So have fun with AI. That's all I have. Thank you.
So thanks a lot to Shailendra for that great presentation, and I'm delighted to say that Shailendra, joins me now. So Shailendra, thanks a lot for that. I want to pick up on a few things that you said there as part of the Q&A that we're going to have. And so the first one is, you talked a few times about responsible AI. How important is it to Avid to take a stance on responsible AI? So expand a little bit on that.
Sure, thanks, Craig. As I mentioned in the presentation, AI has many benefits for content creators, but there are quite a few pitfalls as well. And those pitfalls really outline the reasons why not just us, but the whole industry actually still needs responsible AI positions. And some of those being just the fact that uh, some of the AI decisions, like with generative AI, they're not deterministic. Unlike, say, automation that we used to program in, the automation could be controlled. You knew exactly what was going on because we programmed it. But with some of the AI models being non-deterministic in the sense that they will, there's still some chances of hallucinations, with some of the generative AI technologies. Extra control is definitely needed right now, and that allow basically that philosophy comes out in terms of generative AI, in terms of the responsible AI positions of putting the human in the loop and making sure that the decisions are controlled. But then we also have a responsibility to our own customers to make sure that they are not being impacted adversely, that we are actually helping them through the journey. Where certain things are impacted, there's no question that it's going to be disruptive. It is disruptive. AI is disruptive, but we can at least have solutions based on responsible AI. We talked about the fact that maybe some of the new folks coming into the industry, they may not have all the same ways of learning our trade. But we've also shown now how with some of the conversational editing, some of the Avid Ada chatbot type of technology, there are different ways of learning. So that's an example of changes in how we're approaching this, but those are all underpinned by following the responsible AI position. And lastly, I'll say that we're not the only ones. You probably see government regulations. The EU introduce, the fact that there may be certain regulations that will be put in place. So it becomes a compliance issue as well. That we definitely need to adhere to those philosophies that even some of the governments are bringing out.
Another element which falls on from that, of course, is around security, which is something that is a big concern of customers, of course. So, what's the view from Avid about AI services when it comes to security?
So definitely, there's a content security aspect of it. There's in terms of what type of controls we need to put on the AI decision making, so that that the threats that may occur because of, again, that non-deterministic behavior can be mitigated. What's really interesting is that even when we were going through our own security processes, when we were all talking about it within our company, but also in the industry, we've all, there's been two approaches. There's been the maturity-based approach, where basically we just say, hey, every single thing has to be very mature in terms of security. But then there was a risk-based approach, which is a very natural thing for many folks to follow. That risk-based approach just says, wherever, measure the risk or the business risk of what's the probability of something adverse happening, and what's the severity of what it causes, and then approach the solutions accordingly. That security principle is actually also absolutely appropriate for AI. So in fact, some of the processes that we'll be following, and we are starting to follow within our own company, are based on that, which is using the same risk-based framework from security and applied to AI. Do almost like a threat analysis. So there's certain things where it's no need to kind of put extra controls because the output is harmless. But unless we did the analysis to see that it was harmless, not just to us but to our customers, we wouldn't know. And where there is a potential for harm, that's where we put in the controls. So that risk-based framework, it becomes super important. And same thing with our developers when they're developing code. They are the policy for code generation that we're adopting actually says the same thing. If you had security, we have security code analysis, security threat modeling, even for code generation. So even with AI, we're asking exactly the same tools to be used, the same processes to be followed, so that what apply to secure development processes will naturally transition over to the AI development policies as well.
I want to ask a couple of specific questions around some of the examples of Avid Ada that you gave in the presentation. So, and again, this links a little bit into security, because is everything running on cloud services, or is something happening locally? Explain a little bit what's actually going on.
Yes, as I'd mentioned, Avid Ada is actually an umbrella over multiple technologies. That's actually on purpose, mainly as I'd mentioned, it allows us to provide a governance framework on top of what we're developing, um, in addition to ensuring that our customers can just count on the fact that apart from those frameworks being applied, that it is acting as a creative assistant for us. So part of that means that some of the technologies will definitely be running on premises. And again, this comes back to that threat analysis that we do, but it's not just threat analysis, but business analysis, where certain AI processes need to run very close to the data. Like we talk about speech to text. Uh, uh, we could be sending this to some cloud hosted or external to the customer's environment type of APIs, but we chose to go the extra mile to make sure that those are running locally. So many of the services that we're actually showing are running locally on the local desktop, or even the Media Central clusters. So where there are exceptions will be the cases where they are, for example, some of the AI models are much richer when they're executed on the cloud. So especially some of the large language models, we've partnered with Microsoft Azure to showcase some of the Avid Ada chatbot. That's on purpose, because it's ChatGPT 4.0 is much richer right now. So then anything that we can do on premises, maybe we'll get there even for the on premises type of systems there. But right now it is so rich that at least for those type of API calls, we will be making cloud calls. But again, we will make sure that those are appropriate for the purpose. And the second thing is that for some technologies, the AI models are moving so fast that for us to actually, or our customers to continue to train their models, it's much better if we can just tap into some of the publicly available models directly, just because the technology keeps on changing so fast that what we install one year may actually become old the next one. So especially at this stage, we like I said, a lot of the models we will be running locally. For some of the others, we will actually be making AI calls externally under the Avid Ada framework.
Yeah, so that really brings me on to the next question, where are we training Ada ourselves?
As much as possible, we're trying to use pre-trained models. Um, uh, but they are in one or two cases that we are actually training the model ourselves. That's because we could not find any publicly available models externally. One example is what we're doing with Sibelius. We didn't talk about Sibelius too much in this presentation, but that is one of those areas where actually we're using pre-cleared content to train. And so that's part of the responsible AI positions that we have, that it is basically license-free content, or basically license-cleared content that we're using to train. But a majority of the models that we're using are either open source with pre-cleared content or commercial with business clearance that or business guarantees that we've been given, and that's one of the reasons for the Azure OpenAI position too, because the training to train is very, very expensive. First of all, that's another thing. To train content is extremely expensive. What Azure folks, what OpenAI, what some of the Facebook or Google, AWS, what they can do in terms of training data is much more massive. It requires a lot more massive compute that they can handle. But what we do also, sometimes people confuse training and indexing. So there is indexing that we do ourselves too. That's not the same thing as training the model. So when we're doing when we're analyzing the content to do search matches, as an example, speech to text, some of these areas around the semantic technology that I talked about are actually running on your content, but that's an indexing process, which may seem like training, but it's not training.
Avid's been very open about these developments, and I know you recently spoke, and a number of colleagues spoke at a variety of conferences, including publishing papers with Sympathy. So how important is it to Avid to have this kind of open approach to the way that we're developing AI?
Very important, mainly because the industry is changing very, very fast. And the needs are exploding. So I mentioned before that we are actually getting feedback at every single stage. And I mentioned 3 stages: research, which goes then into prototyping. When prototyping succeeds, we go into productization. So even at research stage, we're publishing papers, and a collaboration is key for that, because we are learning from what other people are doing, and our job is to apply it for the good of our customers. So that's where we are, as we collaborate in these conferences like SMPTE and other conferences. That's the feedback and collaboration we've been getting from that. The proof of concepts that we show, again, openness is key, because are we hitting the right market? Are we hitting the right problems for our customers? Are we going wide enough? That feedback is key. And even when we release, as I'd mentioned, sometimes we actually still call it a public preview versus, hey, it's all done. Because now that it's generally available to everybody, there's still a feedback process. So feedback and collaboration and that openness is absolutely key for us at this point. And not just us, we believe the whole industry needs to be very collaborative about what's happening with AI, just because the changing landscape and the new technologies coming in.
And as a final question, what is the strategy around, productizing some of these tech previews and innovations that we've seen?
It's basically a rolling cycle. What was research some time ago, became a prototype. What was a prototype became a product, and we have, so you can kind of take it for granted that a lot of what we're showing as proof of concepts, once it's validated, and the technologies that are validated by our customers, will make it into products. So you're already observing this sort of research, proof of concept, and productization stage. Think of it as a moving window that will just keep feeding in these innovations, and keep the the pump primed, as they say, with the research and with all the proof of concept and productization. So and we will be prioritizing it, what we're doing, based on some of the business priorities as well, but primarily based on the customer feedback, all guided by the philosophy that we have is about what saves people time and efficiency. So we also want to be very, very focused on those type of areas, which is mostly about time and efficiency, but that also includes providing creative control, more creative control than anybody else had before. Those are the drivers for us to actually figure out what of the research prototypes actually do we productize. So it's going to be a rolling window of productizations.
Belinda, that's terrific. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. It's a really interesting topic. I'm sure it's one that we'll revisit many times in the coming months. So, Shalinda, thank you so much. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more about Avid Ada, you can see that I'm sharing my screen now, which has a QR code. That'll actually take you to a video that we've produced, which actually shows some of the tech previews of Avid Ada running inside of Avid Media Central. So, some of the things that Shailendra talked about in his presentation, you can actually see a demo of that and a demo video there as well. So, please feel free to scan the QR code that's on your screen at the moment, and then you can watch that video. But for now, what we'd like to do is thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.